Angela, I hope you're doing well. I also hope you're having a great break. So for my final project, I decided to do the time mile. I have a variety of reasons for choosing this topic, one of which, in high school, my friend Megan convinced me to run out for track. And when I made the team, I found out that we had actually made 2 separate teams. And at my high school, it was a big tradition for the 2 teams to compete against each other in a big event. And at the meet, I found out that we would be running the same event. Well, when the meet began, my team had a huge lead. We were definitely going to win. And my turn came around, and I blew the lead. Megan ended up catching up to me, and she won the race for her team. To this day, we still argue about it, but the way I argue back is that she was way taller than me at that time. And in my mind, I thought the taller you are, the longer legs you have. So that means you can have a longer stride, which may give you the advantage of cutting down some time. During high school, she was probably about 5'10", and I was probably about 5'5" in that year. Another reason I chose this is because I played soccer all of my life, and I can tell you for every team, a fitness requirement is the mile time. So I'm just curious to know if I was taller, would I have a lower time compared to anybody else? Same thing with the Army here. I have a lot of friends going out for the Army, and their fitness tests are coming up. So for my data, the way I went about collecting it is I actually asked the women's soccer team at the college to send me their heights and their times. The reason I went with this route is because we actually just got done doing our fitness tests. So I know for a fact their time miles are up to date, and we have a variety of different heights on the team. So when they sent me their data, I converted their height to inches, and I converted their time to seconds. The reason being, it just made the math a little simpler and easier to understand. Now, something that was tricky though that I had to remember was with time, if it was below the average or if it was lower, technically that means better because you want a lower time compared to a higher one. So I had to remember that constantly as I was doing the math. Looking at the averages, we can find that actually most of the people on the team fell below the averages for both height and time. So again, does height affect your running time result? I used regression to figure this out, and to start out I found R, and when I did R, I found negative 0.0634, which tells me ultimately there is no correlation between height and your running time, which stinks for my case because my friend was correct. She just won fair and square. Height did not play a correlation. I continued on to find R squared, and I got 0.4%. So what that tells us is that for a timed mile, it is only affected by, height only affects it by 0.4%. Again, no correlation whatsoever. I continued out to find A and B, and I got the ending equation of y equals 453.58 minus 0.55 times x. Along with my data set, I actually wanted to do a little background research as well because I was curious to know what it was like on a broader scale. So at the college, I have a data set for people that are running on the daily. We are expected to be in shape, and we're expected we are expected to run a good mile. So I was curious what the average woman could run in America. And I found a website that actually fit the criteria pretty perfectly because it gave me the average, but also gave me the top 1%. So when it comes to ages 17 to 21, the average was a 9-minute and 51-second mile, which converted is 591 seconds. Looking at that compared to my data is a little different because there's almost a 2-minute difference, which is quite big when it comes to stuff like this. But you got to think about, we don't know where this site got their information. It could be people that never run, people that don't like to run, people that are out of shape. It depends who they asked. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, my PowerPoint turned off. Yeah, so it just depends who they asked. Along with that, it also gave the top 1%. And with that, which was 17 to 26-year-olds, the time was 7 minutes and 48 seconds, which converted as 468 seconds, which is almost near some of the bottom times that I have from my data. But again, we don't know who they surveyed. We don't know if they run all the time, if they ever run. That's really what it came down to. But this website led me to wonder what my top 1% was going to be. So I used Z-score to figure out that number. Again, I didn't have to find out the 50% percentile just because for my data, that's going to be the average. So to find out the top 1%, I had to work backwards. So instead of solving for Z, I had to solve for X. And after doing that, I ended up finding out that my top 1% belongs to the people that got their time in 405 seconds or lower, which converted is 6 minutes and 45 seconds, which is actually the irony that for our college soccer team, you failed the fitness test if you did not get below a 6 minute and 45 second mile. So I don't know if that's ironic or not, but it fit the criteria quite perfectly. Along with that, like I said earlier, there's such a drastic difference just because our team is in shape and there's less room for range just because of the fact that we're all doing the workouts together. So of course the times are going to be way closer together compared to the broader scale. There's going to be some people that have really low times. There's going to be people that have really high times. And to conclude this, I just wanted to share some limitations and kind of sum it up. There were quite a few limitations doing this. I did not receive everybody's mile times from the soccer team. I think partly because of the fact that, some people didn't get that great of times and could have been a little nervous to send me their time, which I completely respect. So I was just happy to get about 13 people. I was also restricted to the mile, which was a limitation. When it comes to the mile, it's more of a long distance event. Rather, I would prefer to do an event where it was a 100-meter dash, just because it's less endurance and more just like a burst of speed, and it comes down to that stride. But again, I didn't have any data that I could conduct to figure those numbers out. Another limitation is weight. I don't know how much these girls weigh. You could have a tall girl, but she could be a lot heavier compared to a smaller girl that is thinner. So it's a lot less energy to have to burn for that smaller person. As I said earlier, doing the regression equation, I found out that height does not have an effect on running speed and time miles. It comes down to the fact that if you're in shape and you can run it. I also found, again, there's no correlation. And for mine, when doing the math, I found that for the top 1%, I actually had 4 people fall into that category, which looking at it at first would seem a little strange because I only had 13 people participate, and how would the top 1% hold 4 people? But if you look farther into it, you can see that the people that had technically higher times, they had a lot higher time. Like it was more of an outlier, so it kind of dragged that number down and allowed for a bigger range. So that's where those 4 people are allowed to just slip into that 1% range. Overall, I actually had a lot of fun doing this project. I called my friend and told her, you were right, height did not play a difference. And it's good to know that, no matter how tall you are, no matter how short you are, you can do the same as anybody else. You just have to be willing to put in the work. And with that, I hope you have a great break, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person in the second semester.